Welcome to episode 43 of the Free Spirit Academy podcast with holistic nutritionist Leslie Woodward. Free Spirit Academy is about you being fully you. My name is Randy Moss, and I'm an eating psychology coach and Kundalini yoga teacher, bringing you conversations about freedom. Largely from rigid diets and painful body image, but ultimately it's about the freedom to be yourself. This is about honoring our own bodies and our purest self-expression. Welcome to the podcast. So in our conversation today, we are talking about motherhood as a spiritual path, but even if you're not a parent or even planning on being a parent, and if that's you, I'm so right there with you, there's a ton of good stuff in here for you. My friend Leslie works with women to support fertility, have healthy pregnancies, be healthy mamas, and as you'll hear, she's incredibly wise and nurturing while still holding this beautiful, fierce, like mama bear energy. So here are a few of the things that you're in for. Leslie will talk about how carrying extra weight may have a divine reason and how we can feel into the body and see if it's at its natural resting place rather than using a number on a scale, which ends up making us crazy. We'll swap stories on the clients who think they're coming to us for meal plans or quick tips and how much deeper a wellness journey can actually go. The importance of assuming that the body's always right in whatever it does and using that as a guide rather than beating ourselves up when things are going not the way that we think they should go. Like we feel like we're doing everything right. Why is my body doing this? Well, what if we make the body right? We'll talk about why we crave intensely sweet, fatty, salty things when we're stressed and the most powerful question to ask ourselves when we're in that situation. We'll talk about forms of nourishment that go way beyond food. And we talk about what Leslie does best, helping women prepare for pregnancy, the myths about preconception, ways to take care of yourself with mindful eating and nutrition prior to getting pregnant so you can make pregnancy and postpartum more connected and a more nurtured experience. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Leslie Woodward. You've talked about taking on all these intense spiritual practices, traveling and meditating in the Himalayas and doing a bazillion hours of yoga and vision boarding and self-help books and therapy and the retreats and the works, and how nothing has been as impactful for you as becoming a mom. And I have so many questions about that, but I would love for you to share just where your interest in wellness in general got started.
Oh gosh. Well, in high school, I struggled with some like kind of disordered eating and body image issues. And it's so funny, back then, my mom took me to a vegan health retreat, which is so funny that it like kind of foreshadowed my future. Yeah. Even though it was for all the wrong reasons, it was just about like losing weight. And it was also funny too. I think that a lot of people will like look back on when they first started wanting to lose weight, and you look at that weight and you're like, why did I want to lose weight? Yeah. I was so beautiful and perfect. But anyway, that kind of started my journey, looking into, plant-based nutrition, but really all nutrition. And I started practicing yoga, which at first was hot power yoga as a method to lose weight, of course. But the beauty of yoga is that often it starts about the physical, and of course it winds up being about much, much more than that as time goes on. And so, I began this path of, even though it was weight loss centered, and it ended up being like a healing journey that I kind of embarked on. With the yoga, I started studying Buddhism in college, and meditation. Wound up studying abroad in Nepal to study at a Tibetan Buddhist monastery. And so again, it kind of started with these shallow reasons and wound up leading me to this like definitely a much deeper place of healing and finding myself and really searching for what true wellness is.
I think
So
that's
yeah,
so beautiful, and I'm totally going to interrupt your string of
please.
thoughts. But like in the intuitive eating community and in the anti-diet community, there can be so much like we don't even read health books, we don't even read anything about food. Da, 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 that's all diet culture, or that's
Yes.
all like it's vanity, or it's whatever, whatever. You're beautiful as you are. Yes, absolutely, and like. I really think any small spark of desire that seems so shallow and surface is for a reason. Like we are wanting
Yes.
that for a reason. And I think that if we honor that rather than being like, oh, I'm such a terrible person, or just becoming totally obsessed with the surface thing and never going any deeper, if we honor that, it almost always takes us down a rabbit hole we may never have gone to if we would have been like, that desire is wrong.
Yes, 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 exactly. Like I teach yoga, of course, and I will have people in my class that are like doing crunches and shavasana, and like my brain is about to like explode
Are
when I
you
watch them.
serious?
Oh gosh, yeah, and that's
What
like
a
not even
funny
like the least
thing.
of it. But no offense if anyone does that, but I have to remind myself that like this is just the starting point
Yeah.
for people, and people like that. Like almost always, it's like 99% of the time, I know that they will, like whether it's because of an injury or because of like they just start to have those shifts in their mind, and their bodies and their needs, that like they will start to like find the breath and start to slow down and realize that it's not all about, you know, the core and
Yeah.
anyway.
No, you're so
Yeah.
right. And I realize how snobby that probably sounded for a second. And I think it's so easy to forget. Like, I have to think back when I first started doing yoga, didn't do Shavasana. Like, I just got up. I was
Yes,
like, oh,
right, you
I'm
skip it.
done. Yeah.
Yeah, I have
Yeah,
students who are like,
totally.
why do I need to do this? And I'm like, it's the most important part of the practice. And they're
Yeah.
like, I don't get it. I'm
Exactly.
like,
But, and the thing is, it's like you can't until you do it. It's like it
yes.
cannot actually be explained to you, or it can, but you don't get
Yeah.
it until you do
Yes.
it, like with
Yes.
anything.
Totally.
And I'm curious, this is like back again, and we probably had this conversation. This was probably our first conversation we ever had when we first met a million years ago.
Yes.
So I don't remember the answer to this, but when your mom was taking you to the yoga retreat, was she saying like, oh, we're going to lose weight together? This is going to be a bonding thing? Was the weight
Oh
thing
yeah,
like
the
spread
vegan
out on the
retreat.
table? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh,
It was
yeah, yeah, yeah.
100% for a weight loss, and she had always, I don't know, like I think with like most women had that like 5 to 10 pounds that she wanted to lose, and sometimes she'd lose it and then she'd gain it and then she'd lose it and she'd gain it, and it was always back and forth, and has continued since then. And I even made a comment to her recently about how difficult it is to raise girls nowadays in the culture that we're surrounded by, and all the pressure that like I really want a girl next.
Yeah.
I pray. And but I'm also, it's like I'm nervous to have that responsibility on my shoulders to raise a girl with what is surrounded by us. And she's like, well, what do you mean? And I was like, well, for example, to like not make comments about your body, or her body, and to teach her that she's perfect the way she is, and to not to not make comments about getting older. My friend talks about how she has to be very careful with her 2 daughters, and she doesn't talk about wrinkles, and to just like to accept herself and to not allow them to hear these things that our culture has infused into us. And she was like, oh well, I hope or she's like, did I do that? It's hard, right? Because I don't want to like blame her and make her feel bad. But I was like, well, yeah, you talked about being unhappy with your body and wanting to lose weight often, and so I definitely, that impacted me, of course. So yes, the reasons why we went were definitely weight loss related, and like many more painful memories of you know I love her dearly. She wanted the best for me. She knew, I was happy, and then I started becoming unhappy and like gained weight. And so for her, I think she saw that like, oh, if you would lose weight, you'll go back to being happy. And obviously that is not how it works.
Right.
So she bought me an outfit that was, 2 sizes smaller than what I was, as like a goal outfit to help encourage me and inspire me to lose weight, so I could wear this cute Abercrombie and Fitch. I still remember what it looks like. It's cute, like little pleated skirt and shirt with like a little floret on it. Anyway, so yes, it was definitely encouraged by her.
Yeah, and I love that she was willing to talk about that. Like, oh my gosh, did I? I mean, that
Yes.
shows her innocence, our mother's innocence in
Yeah.
how they brought us up, because that's just the culture that they were steeped in. They clearly only
Exactly.
wanted us to be
Exactly. Her
happy.
mother was really critical of her. And so my mom doesn't even think when she makes comments. Jack was pulling my hair one day, as he does, and she says, "Oh, don't let him pull the front. You're thinning there." And I was like,
Mm,
"What? Excuse? Like, really?" I'm
mm-hmm.
like, "Don't talk." First of all, it's like barely thinning. It's hormonal. It's like part of postpartum. And second, don't talk to me about my hair thinning. That's like the worst thing you could say
Yeah,
to a
do you say that?
postpartum mother.
Do you really ask her, like, please don't?
Yeah, oh, I did. I
Yeah,
did. I was
good.
like, Mom, that's not nice. Don't say that.
Yeah. And I
And
mean,
she just doesn't see it. That's just how she
right.
was raised.
And the power of mothers goes both ways, because I mean, same for me with my mom. There was all the same weight stuff, and so weight was a big painful spot for me for a really long time. But aging, on the other hand, she was super, and still is, like, super pro aging, and is always telling me like how great it is to get older and all this stuff. And I like don't have a lot of
Mm,
aging fear. And obviously, like, I take really good care of myself, and I'm very conscious about it. But it really is powerful, the mother's
yes.
perspective.
Yes.
Do you?
Truly.
So it's interesting that you feel less nervous about raising a boy in this sort of culture, or do you not? Like, do you not? Like, how does this tie in for boys?
I mean, I think there's a lot of similar issues, and also, I mean, especially in this like the Me Too movement, and I think I'm very mindful of the kind of man that I would like to bring into this world. He was actually born on the day of the Women's March, January 20th,
No. Oh,
2018. So I have
wow.
friends that loved that, and he rocked his tiny feminist onesie.
Oh,
So cute. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of things that I feel some pressure with in general, right? I want him to know that like he can express his emotions. I don't want him to be a boy who thinks that he has to be tough and keep it inside, and that's how be a man, like, and all that
right.
nonsense. And so there's issues like that too. I think that because of me being a girl, and having gone through the issues, and I think there's just more for women than there are for men.
Yeah.
And so I feel that there's an extra pressure to raising a girl, but I think there's definitely pressures to still just the kind of human that I want to help raise, and the qualities I'd like to help instill in him, and the support and the love that I want him to have always. It's like, it's definitely a full-time job.
Yeah, I 100% believe it. Backing up a little bit, I want to get more of just for people who are listening to this, we talk a lot about the struggles that people have with disordered eating. And I think it's really powerful to listen to somebody's story and realize, like, oh, I can relate to that. Oh, and there's hope. Because I definitely
Mm,
remember being in a place where I was like, I'm the only one that's never going to figure out binge eating, or I'm the only one that's never going to figure out how to feel good in my body. I'm like,
yes.
and I didn't feel like I saw examples of it. Or if I did, I was like, well, they never had it as bad as me.
Mm.
So how did the pain manifest for you with food and body, and what were the tools or the realizations that you had that got you to where you are now? And I know that you've talked too about like body image stuff, like pre-baby and post-baby.
Mhm.
So how did that journey also lead up to that?
Yeah. Ooh, it's like, how many hours do you have?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
shortened version, I think, with each layer of like realization that I came to with like where the coping was coming from, and like why I had created these mechanisms for soothing myself, with each kind of exploration of a different facet of it, a little more healing would happen. And so, I in my family, I was very much like, my purpose, my self-worth came from helping. And we didn't have good boundaries, and so suddenly I was like a child being exposed to things I shouldn't have been exposed to. And food became my drug, for sure. I come from like a family of addicts, and lots of like alcoholism, mental health issues, and so as a good girl and the helper, I think I just turned food was like a very socially acceptable
It is
thing to turn
the
to,
good
right? I'm
girl's
not like,
drug. Yeah.
yeah, I'm not like injecting anything. I'm just like having some brownies.
Yeah.
And so I remember one layer. So that's kind of how it started. And just to keep it brief, I remember one day I discovered just the title of a book that shifted something so deep in me. And then like years later, I read the book, but even just reading the book, and the book was called Food, the Good Girl's Drug. And I was like, oh, that's me. Oh my God. Like, that's exactly me. I always thought that I would be an alcoholic because of my family, and I wasn't. I had like no desire. I don't drink at all now. Like, I really have zero desire to do it.
That's
and I was so
interesting that you
scared that I would
thought
be, but it was
that.
the food. The food was what I turned to.
That is so interesting that you thought that you would be an alcoholic. I remember
Oh
my
yeah.
mom telling us, because my dad was an alcoholic, and my mom would tell us, like, don't even have a sip of alcohol ever. And that was also a religious thing. Like, people in our church didn't drink, but she would tell us, like, don't have one sip or you'll be addicted, literally.
Right.
And
Right.
so of course we believed her, and we saw the mess that my dad created with all of that. And I remember being just about 21 and trying alcohol for the first time and being like, oh, this is it. Which,
Right,
by the
really?
way, is also how I felt when I read Harry Potter for the first time, which was also like a big no-no.
What was all the commotion about?
I know, seriously. And so it never became a thing. From the moment that I drank, I was like, oh, this is not going to be my thing. It's fine. And it's fun and whatever, but it's just not going to be my thing. But food was my thing. 100%.
Ditto. The first time I got drunk, I was like, "Oh, this is awful."
Did you?
And I'm like, give me all the cookies. That's why people say like, "Oh, like I can't live without my glass of wine at the end of the day." And I'm like, yeah, I'd give up all the glasses of wine to have all of the baked goods.
Yeah,
Please.
yeah. I mean, and essentially it's the same thing, but it is funny
Yeah.
how it's different things for different people.
Definitely.
You said something in one of your Instagram posts about weight and how you had battled with your weight for so long. And I don't remember where it was at in the post, but you were basically like, there's always a divine reason for the weight and a divine reason for imbalance in the body and in the spirit. What did you mean by that?
Gosh, I'm like flashing back to talking to you about that once, where I was feeling like at one point as I was getting into some of the body image and anti-diet stuff, I was like, but I was still kind of stuck on the weight a little bit, and it didn't feel like from a aesthetic place. It felt like, no, I know that this doesn't feel like my body's natural resting state. Like, I feel like something's off, and you were like, explore that then. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, figure out, what is off. And so I do. I think that there always is if something doesn't feel right and you feel like you're either obviously below or above where you think that your body, and that, right, the think part is really difficult there because, we have like a weight in mind, and like of our high school weight and a size, whatever. And like, that's not what I'm talking about. That's like where your body feels best and whole, and not like where your mind thinks you should get to. But I think that when the body is not there is a reason for it. And it definitely, of course, it can be nutrition related. It could be like a nutrient issue, or water. It could be like dehydration. There's so many different things that can attribute to imbalance in the body. But like, most of the time I have found in my work with clients is that it's an emotional imbalance. It's a lacking in emotional nutrition.
And do you mind sharing like specifically what that might look like, or without sharing any names, like sort of offering an example of somebody who maybe thought they were just dehydrated, but really they were missing something on a deeper level?
Yes. Yeah. I worked with someone recently who, she's a little bit older, and she had been helping her mother back home. And while she was home back with her mother, which I also hear this happen often too, right? When you're back in your home environment, and you kind of like go back to like kind of childhood, you like kind of regress back to your childhood self. She had gained a lot of weight while she was home and came back, and it was still around. And after kind of talking to her about her life, what her life looks like right now, she realized that she was doing nothing to take care of herself in any way, like other than going out and eating. Like that was like going out to restaurants was really like the only pleasure that she was receiving in her life. And so we, talked about all the ways that she could be changing that and nourishing herself on all levels. And anyway, like I saw her a few weeks later and she was like, I can't believe how different I feel. I also thought that I was coming to you for a meal plan. I was like, nope.
Yeah.
I mean, yes and no.
Yeah.
And she was like, and I just like, I feel so much better. And she's like starting to lose weight and just like feeling more energized, and and we didn't really change much at all about with what she was eating. So I mean, the pleasure one's big, I know that, but I just like I continue to come across it time and time again. It's just like a lack of joy that people are like actively choosing to incorporate in their lives, and the power of that changing.
100%. And I think I tend to see it most with the women whose biggest thing, and you were mentioning this in yourself, is overgiving. Like I take care of everybody else's needs before I meet my own. If I meet my own, if I even realize that I have needs, the pleasure piece tends to almost always go hand in hand.
Yes.
And then we have to realize that like pleasure is a need. I think that that's not something we even recognize culturally. Certainly, it's like, guilty pleasures and indulgence, but we actually need pleasure. And if we don't get it, our body will make sure that we get it. And then we'll be like, why am I overeating? Why am I eating this thing that doesn't make me feel good in the big picture? Well, it feels really good for a moment. And if that's your only moment.
Yes. Well, that's what your body needs. And great, like good for your body for doing that when like you're not giving it any pleasure. Your body's like, this isn't working.
Oh, that's so it. Good for your body. Like anything that your body does should be good for your body. And if you can start there and be like, okay, good for my body. This feels insane, but like, what is it doing right?
Exactly.
Let me back up into body image, because we've dipped in and out of that that topic, and I know that there are so many layers to this, but where were you at with things before you got pregnant? And then how did actually growing a baby and creating a baby, bringing a baby into the world shift things?
Yeah. Yes, I mean, I knew that pregnancy, from talking to other women, that pregnancy for women that have gone through disordered eating and body image issues can be incredibly stressful. And so beforehand, I really wanted to be mindful about how I prepared myself for that. And so just like working on these practices of exploring where my emotional eating comes from and nurturing myself in other ways so that food doesn't need to be the only source of my nourishment, and just like I did work on my nutrition. Like, so that is something that I'm passionate about, and worked on fine tuning my nutrition so that my body was feeling like really wonderful and amazing. And so that when I got pregnant, it wasn't going to be, I don't know. This is what I was hoping for, right? In my preparations, I was hoping that it wasn't going to be a struggle. And so when I got pregnant, in the first trimester, for a few weeks, I was very sick. I'm not very sick, but I had to be horizontal. It was like a lot of couch time, and which was fine. And all I could really eat was toast with ghee and honey. That's what I ate for like many meals a day, was toast with ghee and honey, curled up on the couch with my dog. And like, funny fact, I would watch like what's it called? The Bobby Flay show, Beat Bobby Flay.
Is that a cooking show?
It is a cooking show. It's a very good cooking show. Okay. But also very funny as like a vegetarian. It's like not.
Oh, that's true. That's funny.
They do a lot of vegetables too. Okay. But for some reason, it was the only thing that would give me an appetite. So I'd lay there and watch Beat Bobby Flay until I could eat my my toast with ghee and honey. But anyway, so the first trimester was not much was going on, and then throughout the pregnancy, I think that the biggest kind of takeaway that I had with as my body was growing and I was gaining weight, I think the biggest practice that I found so helpful was like returning to those mindful eating practices. And so I remember being in Trader Joe's once, and there were like their version of like Sour Patch Kids, which was definitely a comfort food, or a comfort. I don't even want to say food,
Yeah,
comfort
it's true.
item as a child. And and I was like, oh my God, I want those. And I was like, when was the last time I ate or wanted a Sour Patch Kid? And then I like slowed down because when I was pregnant, I was like, if I really want something, then I'm gonna have it. But I like kind of got quiet for a second. I was like, do I really want that? Like I thought about it and like imagined myself eating it, imagined it like digesting in my stomach, and I was like, nah, like I don't want that. And so I feel like that was like that happened a lot when I was pregnant. I'd be like, ooh, do I want this? And then I'd be like, you know what? So there's some part of like, and I feel like it was anxiety talking or like some other sort of like soothing mechanism from like childhood.
Think, totally. And I think, first of all, that is just the most powerful question. Just, do I actually want this? Or what do I actually want? Because it really forces you to drop down into your body. And I think that when we are in a stress state, it's like we need something super stimulating to even bring pleasure or numb us out or bring us down or give us whatever sort of hit that it is that we want. But when you settle a little bit, you don't need that like hyper processed, intensely sweet or salty or fatty or whatever the thing is, thing to actually deeply satisfy you.
Yes. And I think that, and I think what happens in pregnancy and why it ends up being this like sensitive obviously for so many reasons, but especially with the food and the weight gain is like your life is about to change forever. You're growing like basically an alien inside of you. And it's, I don't know, it's a very anxiety producing time between like your body changing, your health changing. Like there's just so much change and you're just like on this ride. And so of course that we turn to food to cope with that anxiety. And so throughout my pregnancy, my big work was like, how can I nourish myself in the other way so that if I need to use the food, awesome, yay for food. But like, how can I make sure that like, I'm nourishing myself with meditation and yoga and walks outside with my dog every day and like having quality time with my husband so that I'm not eating Sour Patch Kids all day.
Right. Which wouldn't
which is not
actually
end up pregnancy, right? Yeah.
And so then once you gave birth and you were looking at your body, and obviously I'm sure things had changed, was it more empowering? Was it scary? Like, not only has my whole life changed, my body's changed, everything's different, like you're inhabiting this whole new world?
Yeah. Oh gosh. Well, in pregnancy, especially at the end, I had never loved my body more than I loved it pregnant, which was definitely a surprise for me. I would just like look at myself naked in the mirror and be like, oh my God, that is literally the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my whole life. Which makes me, I don't know if that makes me sound full of myself, but like, I was like, oh my God, beautiful. This is magic.
No, that's how I feel when I see my friends. Cause I've never wanted kids. I'm not going to have kids, but like when one of my best friends gets pregnant, there is nothing more gloriously beautiful. Yeah. Like you absolutely should feel that way about yourself.
The first you're like, do I look like, like I'm growing an alien inside of me? And then I regret not having like taken any pictures of myself, which I will have another baby, God willing. And so I will take pictures of myself then, but I'm just like, which is like such a sweet memory of being like, oh, this beautiful body and just like being so grateful for it. And I think that laid the foundation for, postpartum. Because I believe that, and now that there is not an appropriate amount of weight to gain for different body types. And so this is just like all my journey. But I didn't end up gaining a lot of weight. So that postpartum, I was able to, get back to my weight fairly easily with the help of breastfeeding, which was magic. But postpartum, just seeing obviously like skin hanging differently and then boobs being differently. I think because of my awareness of my body during pregnancy, when it was time postpartum to notice these changes, I've definitely written about it, but any sort of like critical thought that my mind would have towards my body, there was something in me that would be like, how dare you? There's like
Oh,
this
it's like this
voice.
fierce mama bear.
Yes, this voice
Oh.
within me would rise up, and when I would be like, "Oh, my belly's, my belly's a little saggy or whatever," and she would be like, "Are you kidding me? I
Uh,
grew and
uh.
birthed a baby for you, and you're gonna talk about your skin being a little bit loose?
Yeah.
Like, who are you? Shut
Mm.
up!" And like the first time I heard her, I was like, "What?" But
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, "Yes, ma'am." And so she hasn't gone away. Every time I have any sort of thought, which they're like kind of few and far between now, and I feel lucky because I know that that's not the case for a lot of women postpartum, and it's like definitely a long journey of like trying to love your body again. But for me, the work started so early that it makes
Right.
sense to me that I am here now. But yeah, it's a pretty powerful thing. I like joked that I was going to name her Khaleesi or something because she's like fierce
I
and like no
love it.
nonsense.
Well,
And I love her.
it's such a good example. The way that I work with my clients is identifying the child in them, the inner child, the wounded inner child in them, which from my perspective that would be the part of you that's like, "Oh my god, my belly," because that's what she was conditioned to. It's just a conditioned
Yes,
voice. And then
yes,
like developing the adult in you or cultivating or finding the adult in you who's like, "Okay." Like it can be a very gentle voice like, "All right, sweetheart. There is a bigger truth
yes,
here," or it can be like, "That is not welcome here." And
yes.
whatever
I
our
know that
adult voice
if
is,
it's
it's
Mark David or who else
mm,
in that sphere talks about like the princess and the queen, and that
yes,
is definitely like that has been with me so much because
yes,
after having him, I am just like, it's all queen. And it's
mm,
not, it's also because like I don't have time for the princess thoughts. I don't have time for the doubt and for the insecurity and for the like, oh, like I wish, not that it's not like a big deal for a lot of people, but like I just don't have time to deal with wishing my body was different. And like, it's just like I feel like I got to this point, and I think motherhood, it's like many things brought me to this like culmination, but I got to this point where I was just like, enough.
yeah.
And just like that, it was just like, I have goosebumps. It was just gone.
Well,
And
and
like, do I
you,
have like small moments maybe? But like,
yeah,
I have no, and this is like a bigger conversation too, like my life in general. I just feel like because, having a business and having a baby and trying to, also be like a wonderful wife to my husband and like a good friend to my friends. And I just like, I don't have any time for nonsense anymore. And
yeah.
that's what I think it is now. And so I'm just like, I'm done.
Well, and I think that we talk about these big revelatory moments, and I have them too, and I'll share like this was the moment that this changed for me. But I think the reality is we've had so many steps and so many
Yes.
like dark nights of the soul and moments in our journal and moments in our yoga practice and realizations and maturations that led to those big openings where it's like no,
Yes.
done with that. It's not just suddenly you got lucky and now life
Yes.
is great. It's like no, you like I don't want to say you worked for that, but like you kind of did.
I
You kind
did.
of
I put in
did.
a lot of work. Yeah.
Yeah,
Over the
absolutely.
time. And then it was just like a more dramatic, I think because it lined up with,
Yes.
birth is what made it just like more, like it stood out as a moment.
So, all of the ways that you were working to take care of yourself, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, prior to getting pregnant, how many of those are things that you bring into your own practice? Like, what are some of the things that you bring into your practice with women for like preconception preparation?
Ah, yes. Yes, definitely all of them. So I started a program which runs women through these different kind of learnings that I feel are so important to like. So of course, like before getting pregnant, like fertility is an extension of your overall wellness. So if you're feeling like crap, then likely your fertility is not as strong as it would be if you're feeling like really great and energetic and like everything feels like it's in a good flow and all systems are operating smoothly. And so the different things that we talk about are so like environmental toxins are a really important one that that my group is going through that right now, which is of course why it comes off the top of my
Mm.
head. And we talk about laying a foundation for a healthy pregnancy and easier pregnancy by doing these mindful eating practices ahead of time. So of course, like once you get pregnant and the cravings start to hit, being able to already have a toolkit of mindful eating resources is life-changing, so that when those cravings start to happen, you just are better equipped to be able to do that kind of like slow down and ask the big question of like, do I really want this? Which I think is so important before going into pregnancy, and then also postpartum, because postpartum is like a very difficult, anxious, draining time that you know, having these resources is really important. But gosh, and then we talk about, anyway, there's like different nutrition that can help with optimizing egg quality. So that's something that we go through, and how to balance your hormones, and also how to sync your cycle to like your life, or how vice versa, how to sync your life according to your cycle, which I know we've talked about a long time ago, which is, you know, such an amazing learning that, you know, to be able to ebb and flow with our hormones in a more mindful way, instead of thinking that, you know, that we should be just like go all the time, and that we should be all the same all the time, that because men, their hormonal cycle is 24 hours and ours is 28 days. So like, how on earth do we think that we can function the same as men? We can't.
It's and the day is set up, and I think the day is set up for a masculine person. It's set up the same way every 24 hours, and we don't function the same way in that, and we're branded crazy for it. Or neurotic, or
so, like,
or
of
moody,
course we're reaching
or
for Krispy Kremes and whatever, because we're set up in this system that we are not meant to be on. There's just no way. And so I think it's so important for all women to learn how to sync their lives according to their hormonal cycle, which just makes everything easier and better.
Absolutely. There's a lot of and I know I bring it back probably too much. People are probably sick of it, to the anti-diet and intuitive eating. Not necessarily so much in the intuitive eating community, but I see so many things that I'm like, oh, there's so much good here, and also so much not. But like, there's a big chunk of talk about how, you know, your weight is just your weight. There's nothing that you can do about it. Your health is just your health. There's nothing you can do about it. Stuff is genetic, blah, 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 blah. And I know that there's also stuff in the world of fertility. What are some of the myths around fertility that you like to talk about?
Oh gosh. I don't know. Sorry, my brain too started going to a different place because of the anti-diet stuff.
Please, like, wherever your brain wants to go is awesome.
Because I think that there's like, there's so much beauty in the movement, and then also some things where I'm like, I hear you, but I don't know that I entirely agree with that. And there's some ways that like my approach would be in a disagreement with some of the anti-diet stuff, because there's like good research to show that like people that have an intolerance to gluten but don't know and are eating it have a higher likelihood of miscarriage and fertility issues. So there's so much to someone.
I think it's confusing.
There is like truth to certain foods being, you know, labeled as toxins for the body. So
it's true. And I think it's confusing for people because there's truth in all of these conversations. Like in that conversation, there's truth in the fact that some people aren't sensitive to gluten, and they're just cutting it out to lose weight or to be healthy, and it's making them neurotic, and they're not digesting it well because they're being neurotic about it. So there's like truth there. But then on the other side, like, yes, if you are, that can make a massive impact.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So bringing it around then to the fertility piece, what are some of the things that are often assumed, like, oh, this is just the way it is, and you come in and say, actually, no, we can do something about that?
Yes. Well, that most women, when they go to their doctor, you know, really excited because they're like, I am going to go off the pill, we're ready to get pregnant, and their doctor says, is like 99% of women I talk to, great, good luck, and if you're not pregnant in a year, come see me. That's like the only guidance that we get. Most people, and if you have a doctor that was different, then like you were very lucky.
I mean, that's not even guidance.
Yeah,
that's just
not
like
guidance.
Okay, go get pregnant.
And also, it's like it also sets you up for the negative too. It's like good luck, and if you're and then they immediately go to the negative. If you're not pregnant in a year, and you're like, oh God, then there's a problem. And then like the mind starts racing and, starts to then, we get trapped in these negative thoughts that
And
this is
isn't
what's
it
going to happen
harder
to
to
us.
get pregnant when you're in that really stressed out state?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. It is harder to get pregnant when you're stressed, which is, and it's not the only reason. So it's not to like, if someone's not being able to get pregnant, it's not saying, oh, it's because you're too stressed out about it. Like that's, it's one of many things that can be at play. But yes, stress is definitely a big issue with fertility, and all kinds of different stress. But also, when the doctor says that and says to come back in a year, like, first, if you do wait until a year to think about other aspects of boosting fertility or treatments, often you're already really stressed out. As someone, it did not take me a very long time to get pregnant, full disclosure. And in that time, even though it was not very long, I turned into like a certified crazy person. Like, it's not difficult to do, because it's like this really sensitive thing. And we've spent so long trying not to get pregnant that we think that once we do the opposite, that it's going to happen immediately, right? We've been like taught in like high school, they were like, just once can create a baby. And so we're like,
which is good advice.
Yeah, it is good advice. I'm not saying they shouldn't be teaching that. However, when it's time to make the baby, we're like, okay, great. Like one time of trying should do it, right? Because like we were taught that it happens so easily. Like that's not always the case for a multitude of reasons. And so, when the year comes and you go back to the doctor, like you're really stressed by then. And so I feel strongly that women should be given the resources to, to boost their fertility, way ahead of time. And so in Ayurveda, which is the Indian medical system for anyone who doesn't know, but it said that women have the ability to increase the health of their eggs in the 3 months before conception. So even though we're born with our eggs, the hormonal environment that they are, sitting in, you're able to influence in that time. And when I heard that, I was like, that is incredible and so empowering and exciting. And why is no one else talking about this? Why am I going to the doctor and they're just like, okay, good luck, go get pregnant. And not saying that like I have any sort of ability to influence my egg health and therefore my future child's health, and my fertility, of course. So yeah, that is a big missing link and kind of what fires me up and is why I do what I do now.
I love that you use the word empowering, and it's why I don't particularly subscribe to any one way of being, like no one particular diet label, no, like not intuitive eating, not, but I pull from all of them because I think that there's truth in all of them. And I think that there are different sort of like stepping stones and different right places to be as you're growing. And I think that empowerment piece is freedom. To be just a little bit more empowered than you were before, and then learn a little bit more and be a little bit more empowered. And if a piece of advice that you are taking in doesn't feel empowering, if it feels hindering, I would venture to say there's more. I don't think truth is ever that limiting or constricting. And so I'll end it up with this. How I usually define a free spirit is just you getting to be you getting to be yourself. And that getting to change as you grow. When you hear the phrase free spirit, what comes up for you?
It's interesting because I feel like it's changed over the years. And like, it used to be like, oh, being able to travel. And,
yeah, totally.
Do whatever you want. And now it's like, I have a baby, so that's not happening. So interesting. It's funny. I haven't really reflected on like what the word freedom even, what it means to me now is like, being a mother now, it's just like having the time and space to devote to bettering myself. I feel like everything is about being better and like looping us right back to the motherhood as a spiritual path. Because that's like most of what I think about, is like freedom is having that time and space to meet all of my needs on all levels so that I can be the best version of myself, so that I can live that and be an example of it to my child. And like the difficulties of motherhood, when you're not taking care of yourself and you don't have that those systems set in place to do that, it's impossible, truly. So, yeah, I'm not sure if that answers the question.
You have no idea how much I love that answer, really, truly, because you have no idea how many times somebody will say to me, like, well, first of all, there is the idea that freedom is just I can do whatever I want whenever I want, or perhaps I can
Right.
eat whatever I want whenever I want, and that's food freedom, or that's what it means to be free.
Right.
But like when I work with mothers, sometimes, in fact, I just had somebody yesterday say, like, well, I know I'm not totally free, and I've got my kids here that I'm trying to feed, and I can't totally focus on my food and whatever, whatever. And I'm like, freedom is available anywhere. It's
Yes.
available within your context, and it is the ability to grow. And like you said, I think it's exactly what you said, to meet your needs where you're at so that you can grow,
Yes.
because growth wants to happen. Evolution
Yes.
wants to happen. And if you're meeting your needs, that is so much more easy than if you're not, then you're just kind of chasing your tail, dealing with addictions and compulsions and feeling miserable because you're not growing, and that's not freedom. It can look
Right.
so many different ways in so many different contexts with all sorts of boundary. I think that
Yes.
that's the thing too. You have this boundary in your life now, but that does not make you less free. It just means your freedom looks different. And you
Yes.
need
And it's funny,
systems
as you
set
were
in
saying that,
place.
like
Yeah.
my mind flashed to the fact that, like, I was like, oh, well, even if I didn't have him, it would be the exact same thing. Like, would I get to like go to dinner more often? Sure, sure. But like, what the real sense of it means to me is like is the same whether he's whether I have a baby or not. It's like having that time and space to take care of myself. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and I want to thank you for confirming that for me too, because I will work with parents, mothers, and I'll say things that, like to them as a parent, and a part of me in the back of my mind is like, God, I hope I'm right about this. But like that is exactly what I will say, is that, freedom is going to look different in every context. I just
yeah,
happen to not be in your context, but it's just like everything is a microcosm of everything else.
yes,
And so the basic principles are going to apply absolutely everywhere.
yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much for your wisdom.
Oh my gosh, of course. Thank you so much for having me. So lovely to talk about all these things.
My pleasure.